We'll do the boring stuff while you're doing that, Mike. Approval agenda. Any additions, deletions?
Motion for approval?
Thank you, Mike.
Have a motion. Do we have support?
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from July 27th. Any comments, corrections?
Motion for approval?
Have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Committee report update. Banners from the Visitors Bureau.
Yes, we had planned the launch for the banner program to coincide with the Visitors Bureau doing their Cadillac Commons banners. Those are up now, and notice has gone out, I think, on our Facebook and website, and I think through the chamber, and I don't know if other sources, but the word is now out there that we have the banner program open and running. We had one application for, I think, 1 or 2 banners yesterday, so it's up and running, and the banners look great, and it was a very generous thing for the Visitors Bureau to help us launch in that way. So it's up and running, and hopefully we'll see a lot more interest as time goes on.
Parking Subcommittee. I think this is our big one today, is parking assessment.
Yes. We met as a parking subcommittee. We did, at previous meetings, there was discussion about going to 100% just to total square feet, and we reviewed those numbers and assessments, and there was quite a few big swings up or down. There was in the neighborhood of about at least 15 businesses that went up or down by more than $200, and we looked to it again at the differences in parking demand generation by the different uses, and decided to go back to that system. So Owen and myself and Abigail worked quickly to try to revise the spreadsheets to go back to the old system. And just to refresh your memory, we are going with 50% of the assessment fee coming off of the parking demand generation formula that I developed. 30% is still going by building square footage, and the remaining 20% is on contiguity of the business to the public parking. And so the numbers that you see in your spreadsheet reflect that. And then as a cross-check that the parking generation demand formula was not set too high, the spaces that we say are being required came in at about 80 or 90 spaces under our total parking count in the downtown, which is, I think, exactly where we would like to be. Majority of our parking is filled on a regular basis, but we do tend to run shy of being fully parked on any given day, unless there's a special event going on. So I think the overall number came out good as well. And then with respect to vacant buildings, as we discussed, everybody was charged for the first floor space, regardless of whether there were vacancies or no vacancies. If they were vacant, they were charged at the rate of retail and office. It's the same number, 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And then, of course, we did take out the spaces that we thought weren't practically usable without a sizable investment to renovate that space. And quite frankly, some spaces that weren't capable of being renovated for use for most retail or office uses. So those numbers are what reflects that. And I think for the most part, the numbers that you see, you'll see some minor swings, but I think it's better numbers than we saw with the other system. It also reflects that Mike Coy updated the survey of existing parking for all the businesses. So all the existing parking on private property, everybody is credited for those spaces. And we also updated the square footages per the county records to 100% match the square footage counts that are on the assessment rolls at the county. So I feel pretty good about where those numbers are. Certainly if we wanted to, we'll be having a public hearing, I believe, when this goes to council. If people had some concerns about their particular number, we would happy to retrace our steps and show them the numbers that led to their assessment number. But that's pretty much where we are on that. I also have a memo kind of restating all that you have as well.
I just want to comment on timing real quick. An assessment after passed by the board has to go through 2 meetings of the city council. So there's a series of about 4 resolutions they have to pass according to the city code, and they have to have a public hearing. So we're at the point where these have to go out with bills that are sent December 1st. And there is no meeting no city council meeting the first Monday of November because of the election the next day. So we're kind of pressed for time. We have to have the bills to the printer a week or 10 days before they hit the mail. So really the council we're planning on having city council hear this issue for the first time this coming Monday. But that's sort of dependent on reaching consensus here today. So it would be heard by council Monday, ideally Monday, and then 2 weeks from then there would be a public hearing. We would mail notice to all the businesses on the list right after council would adopt those first resolutions. So those would go out Tuesday, and then they would have the public hearing at that second meeting in October, which would be the 3rd Monday of October. And then that would be the final step, and then we'd be able to program them into the bills. So that's from the timing perspective. Typically, these are, once they're passed in a normal year, they're included on July tax bills. But obviously the assessment wasn't approved at that time, so the plan was to put them on the December bills. That's our last opportunity to bill these for the fiscal year. So,
And their motion would be a motion to recommend this special assessment. What would be the right word? This formula or this? What is the word for what?
the special assessment roll, I would say,
Okay.
we just approve the roll.
To approve it and to
Yeah.
also recommend approval to council? Or just
Yeah,
to?
either one, I
one.
think, is just
Okay.
approve it here, because it has to be done by the Business Improvement District, the BID board. This is one of those things, which is why the BID was created. So you guys are all officially the DDA and BID board. So it's kind of got to start here, and then it goes to council. So yeah, to approve the downtown parking assessment roll, I would say.
It's okay for discussion.
Go for it.
You know, I'm the 3rd highest paying person in here, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the spreadsheet. I take advantage of, my tenants take advantage of the parking lot back here, or up here, and it's always kept clean. It always looks new, it's manicured. I just got back from a 2-week trip throughout Europe, and I was very impressed throughout Europe, except once I got to Naples, Italy. It's a crap hole. The leadership there, they don't put anything towards taking care of just beautiful structures. The structures are very similar to Paris and in Barcelona where I was at, but it's all dirty. And so I appreciate, I mean, this is a significant spreadsheet for somebody, for Owen and John to do.
That's my favorite, so, you know, it's just,
Well,
thanks for the opportunity to make another long spreadsheet. I love it.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
my best day.
I'm glad you love the spreadsheets because we're getting really, truly blessed with people that care about the community, and then leadership is supposed to be proactive, not reactive. And this, it really encourages me as a property owner, not just as a DDA member. And I personally, you know, support this. And this is coming from a person that I got a net increase, not a net decrease. So it's still a better deal. I mentioned to John, you guys can add Mitchell Cobb in, and I'll to my. It would be nice as a private.
Yeah.
I would add it.
Plowing it and, you know.
Yeah. So it's a great deal as a property owner. Give you an example, Mitchell Cobb, I probably, with maintenance, everything, it's anywhere from probably $5,000 a year to $6,000 a year. And the building's smaller than Old City Hall. So this is 1/3 the cost, and it's done right. And I know Ken's over there, and I know he makes sure things are executed and it's done right, so, yeah. Very appreciative.
Thank you.
The only question I have, John, is and maybe this will get cleaned up, but like there's a couple like heart-to-heart balloons and Johnson Insurance that are showing that they need 0 parking.
There was a couple that we struggled to match from the last roll, and most of those, and I was going to verify that particular one. Was that number 13, I think? That there was actually like a series of addresses, and it
Didn't line up right.
it didn't line up right as far as that building itself was still getting charged. So we'll confirm, especially, I think there's maybe 4 on this list that say unmatched.
Yeah, and I saw that too, because that's like
Yeah.
Apple. It looks like Apple Valley is coming up as unmatched.
Yeah, and that one I think had several, you know, like 110, 10, 112, and 114. So maybe we'll make sure the building itself is included on the roll, but that's what happened with those. And that was part of that was all the work that John did to, you know, make sure it was a clean.
Well, and I know they were in a time crunch because,
Yeah.
you know, subcommittee we just met last week, so
Yep.
I understand. I just kind of wanted to, you know, make sure that there was a plan in place
No,
to
that's a
clean
good
those
question
up.
on those. Yep.
Yeah, and they didn't always, some people own a business that's got multiple properties, and sometimes the records were in different files. So there's a certain amount of combinations that you have to do, and that's probably what happened in this case.
Well, like Apple Valley, I mean, there was 2 or 3 buildings in that spot before they built that, so I'm sure it's probably a bit of a mess. I can say compared to the preliminary one that we looked at last week, this makes a lot more sense. Kind of accomplishes a lot of the things that I think was the goal, to even out and take into account some of that space, but yet we had some pretty big swings before that were alarming. So, anyone else have anything?
As a business owner downtown, you feel like this is,
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
both of my properties went up, but you know, it's not anything that I would say is like out of line or, you know, where, I mean, kind of,
I was gonna say the same thing, because
Yeah.
ours went up a little bit, but in comparing it with the other banks
Right.
in town, it's comparable with the square footage and the number of spaces that are there, so, yeah, like you, I agree that this is a better representation of what we should be assessing for the parking rather than just the square footage. I also like the idea that even if it's vacant currently, there is an assessment, because it's a 5-year term and a lot can change in that 5
Right.
years, and there was no way to predict. Some of these places could be vacant that are full now, but we could have vacancies currently that are full. So I think it's important that we assess those, whether there's somebody in there or not. Gives them some incentive to fill the space.
We'll go ahead and leave the inspections down for the 21st.
I like it. I forget what word Owen used though.
So we need to make a motion
Oh,
that,
yeah,
Specials.
so I would say a motion to approve the downtown parking assessment roll as presented.
I'll do that.
Yes,
we
that-
have a motion. Do we have support?
I
So
support.
moved, I like it.
I like
We have
that.
motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Somebody's gotta oppose it.
Who seconded that, Steve?
Lisa. So, sorry, Tim, motion still carries.
I know.
Someone's got to be
It's
the
all right, at
rebel.
least they know we're not rubber stamping everything, right?
That's right. So we have no old business, new business, DDA goals. I had reached out to Abby and John a few weeks ago and just, I guess, and maybe John can fill in here, but personally, I think it's been a while since we've done it, but like, what do we want to focus on? I mean, because we throw out lots of things that say we need to do this. You know, we know that our sidewalks need attention. We know that streetscape needs attention. You know, we know that there's these different things, but is there other things that we're not even talking about? And or how do we want to prioritize things? I mean, what's our purpose here, I guess, is my thought. And so I think it's kind of important that on some level we have a little bit of a roadmap to say, hey, this is where we want to focus our energy coming up. And I guess, you know, thoughts from everyone else would be extremely helpful.
I agree with you, Steve. I feel like sometimes we come up with a lot of ideas, but they're just ideas, and I think if we can set some goals for things that we'd like to accomplish, then I think then we can work through the committees to push some of those forward and work through. I think the ideas that were presented as part of the packet here with things to do with downtown, those are just the things that we could think of off the top of our head, and I just, maybe we need to do a session on just, you know, some brainstorming about what we'd like to see downtown, and then prioritize what that results in, so that we can focus efforts on the things that are most important.
And I think that kind of like the recurring theme is safety, walkability. I mean, it's like looking through everybody's thoughts. I mean, and I guess not just from us, but talking to other business owners. I mean, there's been a couple, you know, chamber groups recently for downtown. I mean, and it's been a very large portion of the discussion is people are very frustrated and disheartened by that. So now I know we kind of always circle back to an issue being money, and whatever, but I also look and and I give Marcus credit, I mean, he's done a lot of things for the city that we probably didn't have money for, and he's helped find ways to do it. So I guess part of me thinks if we focus on it and make it a priority, and we say it's going to be a priority, then, we got to start somewhere. And, John too, I mean, how many grant programs and different programs are out there that we might be able to tap into if we have a vision and know what we want to do?
Well, and how can we join forces with the other people, of the other groups that are trying to better downtown, to combine resources to actually accomplish some of the things that would make downtown safer, more walkable, shoppable, those kinds of things. I think we need some collaboration amongst those groups in order to get it done, because like you said, funding is where usually it gets stalled. It's like, well, okay, that's a great idea, but how do we pay for it?
Well, what if I agree with you, in looking at, when I came on to the board, Marcus said, hey, there's really not a whole lot of money on the DDA, so just wanna let you know, cause I like to move the needle on anything I'm doing. And I think there's a lot of things that you can do, that we don't have to spend a lot of money. We have to do some leadership decision making and some choices, like the vacant buildings downtown. Here in Cadillac, it's pretty much open with whatever you can do. You put pole barn material on it, you can paint brick and not do the tuck pointing. I mean, and then I get asked to keep putting more money into the city. There's no restrictions. Vacant buildings, it's blight. If you remember, I've only been here a little bit less than 5 years. Cobbs Mitchell was vacant for 13. The Olson's building was vacant for a little bit longer than that. Okay, and that's something. And then when I got done with a couple of those things, people came up and told me, well, I was gonna do that. Okay, I hold my butt up from Grand Rapids. It's an hour and a half, and with construction right now, it's 2 hours on the highway. If I can do it, but the thing is we're not going to retain developers and investors to keep allowing this. But the thing is we're gonna have to take some backlash of some people that say, well, this is how it's always been. The street count actually came from Mike Coy when I was looking at buying Cobbs Mitchell. I didn't realize the street count had increased to the level it was. And so we can leverage up with MDOT. And then also John has some great ideas on how to right size Mitchell Street. But Mitchell Street's a highway. Okay, I like a new Tahoe almost every year. I won't park my Tahoe on that road. And they go, well, you got insurance. Well, you put a $1,000 deductible or whatever.
I won't park my 12-year-old van on Mitchell Street. So it doesn't matter what it is.
What it is.
No.
But we know, like, if you do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we know that's a key. We know the 2 key threats is obsolete, blighted buildings, and we know people are going to get hurt on Mitchell Street. You were just saying your worst part of the day is driving down to Mitchell Street. We got this guy right here taking notes that gets clipped. I mean, so we know our severe threat.
Well, and I've come close enough twice.
I was
They
gonna
have
say,
to jump out of the way.
Unfortunately, he's not the only
Yeah.
one. I mean,
Yeah, I know it happens.
He's probably the most recent one, but
Well, there was just another lady, last week or 2 weeks ago, Anthony had to run out.
Well, ironically, I saw Anthony on the 4-month anniversary of me getting clobbered. And he came walking through, and I just cornered him again and said, hey, thank you, because he literally was the first public safety person who was on the scene to help scrape me up. And And I just think, I mean, it's my guy, he goes, it happened again yesterday. And he said it was a woman, she got knocked down. Wasn't injured like me, but he said it happened again, just, you know, and that was, it happens. And I hate to
Watching,
admit it,
yeah.
but just walking over to get Chris's donut. I dealt with anxiety walking across Mitchell Street. I've still yet to walk across Mitchell Street or Harris Street, by where I got hit. I'd go in the back door of the Clam if I wanted something to eat. And it's how it goes. I also, Steve, I want to add, with respect to grants, I guess I want to make sure this board knows that on a weekly basis, multiple weekly basis, we all get information from different sources. Marcus sent us one yesterday, and he's not even around, of grant opportunities for us to investigate. And whether it be John, or Owen, or Marcus, or Abby, or me, or Jeff Dietland, we are getting information on a weekly basis about different grants, and we do open up the links, we do take a look at them and see if it's something that does apply. And of course, the thing that always gets our attention is if you see something, and they're usually not large dollar, that doesn't require matching funds. But we do investigate different links and different information we get from various government sources on a weekly basis.
And I wasn't trying to suggest
I
that
know
you,
that,
that
I
you
know
weren't.
that. I
Yeah.
just, it's, I mean, you're right.
I mean, I guess
You're
I guess
right.
the opposite. I was thinking we.
Explore them. We
Yeah.
need to explore them, but we definitely do.
Well, and I think if we have a list of what we think are priority items for us to address, when they're looking, if they see something that's on our list, that fits
Help-
with
help
something on our
match it up
list, then
and-
it makes their job a lot easier too. If we have some direction or some idea of what we wanna do or where we wanna go, then the collaboration,
I mean,
It's
if
a lot
we
easier.
look at the amount of money that was generated for Commons area, Trailhead, you know, blah, blah, I mean, that's a lot of grant money that you guys have been able to procure over the last several years.
You know how much
If we
it
can
is?
carry the grand total when you add it all together, I don't know a final total amount.
Yeah, I don't troll cities and townships on doing Freedom of Information Acts, but I did this time. It's over $10 million in the last 6 years. And I run a nonprofit in Grand Rapids, and it's a large one. I work with grant writers and everybody constantly. And to have this staff that can do these grants, we're not even touching at our level what the city's accomplishing. I mean, they're rock stars on these grants from Marcus and John and Owen. I mean, it's unbelievable what you guys are doing.
So let's leverage it and keep
Amen.
using it.
I agree with you.
hey,
You know.
you don't get it if you don't ask for it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Marcus has a saying, keep our foot on the accelerator.
And
Or go for the gold.
they're going for the gold. It's amazing.
It is.
Just a quick comment. The sidewalk has caused several people that I know of, including myself, to fall on their tail, which is a real hazard thing. Now, I know it's expensive. I think it was put in or paid for in 1993.
About right. It's got to be close.
At least that's what my spreadsheet said when I was looking at it.
When they redid Mitchell Street and
That's,
before
I
everything
think that's the
happened, I
last
think that
time
was
they
the last
ripped out
time
all
they
the
were really
sidewalks
worked on.
and took out the coal bins and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just something that, on a personal level, because I said I've gone down twice. At night, your foot gets caught in one of these places where it's missing, and you're going to the pizza place.
I've seen custom. I mean, a very regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
We hand out Band-Aids to customers that have wiped out on the sidewalk and are skinned up and bleeding and whatever. I mean, it's. I'm not gonna say it's. I would say probably at least once a month on a 12-month average, which to me is a lot, you know, because I mean we're just one storefront, so multiply that out and it's kind of.
Is it primarily the sunken bricks, I would assume?
Yeah,
Those-
yeah, they
those
catch
sections.
they catch the lips and the edges and, yep.
Which we don't want visitors coming to town
No.
getting hurt.
And the other downside with, you know, the sunken bricks is it also catches and creates ice buildup in the winter. And it doesn't really matter how much you try to keep it clean, like, you know, wherever those gaps are, you know, because your shovel goes right over top of it, you know, and it just.
I guess just in our discussion, it sounds like one of our high priority items should be just making downtown safer. Whether it's the sidewalks, whether it's slowing traffic.
I mean, I think those
You know.
two things are probably.
I mean, those are things that we can't do alone. We'll have to have some help with from other agencies. But I think if somebody, honestly, I think it's time somebody steps up and goes, this needs to be a priority because it's becoming
And I know, I mean,
more and more frequent.
there's probably a few of us here that were here the last time MDOT came, which, you know, Rick came, what was before COVID. I mean, this was several years ago. And I know that there's a hesitancy from MDOT to, you know, do some road diet stuff or whatever. I mean, they want to move traffic, but I also know other communities have done it. You just have to be willing to kind of fight the battle a little bit. And I guess the question is are we willing and ready to fight the battle and make it happen? Or are we just going to kind of sit back and keep talking about it? And
Well, and Rob, you talked
Nothing
about the
changes.
traffic counts being higher downtown than what they were before
When the highway
131
went through.
131 went through. I remember vividly what it used to be like. I used to work at the corner of Granite Street and Mitchell, and every Friday afternoon, it's bumper to bumper traffic all the way through town. Then it was vacation traffic heading through town, and most of that now is happening on the expressway, but more and more people are, you know, using downtown, and I think it's, other than the truckers that still use that, you know, I think the traffic flow is more consistent from one day to the next and not so heavy on the weekends like it used to be. So, you know, in general, yes, you're right, the traffic count is going up and it's easy to see, but it's just not hitting at specific times of the day like it used to. It's all day, every day. And so if we can figure out a way to either reroute some of that traffic or just flat out slow it down, because if you go 25 downtown, you get run off the road. You're a problem. You're in the way. So I don't know how we go about doing that, but
Is that something John could draft up some ideas for
Well,
us?
the biggest way that people address that is to design the road so people don't feel comfortable driving any faster than 25. That's, yeah, when people try to rely on police, it's not the way to go. Unless you want to spend an unusual amount of money on law enforcement. I think the real true answer is to redesign the road and that people not even feel comfortable driving more than 25 miles an hour. That's really the true answer. In the meantime,
Well, and our challenge locally is to do that, preparing for snows of 8 to 12 inches, you know, when trying to do that in a way that, you know, a loader not the size of, you know, Lake Cadillac can actually push the snow around corners and into piles. And so that's another part of that challenge.
and you usually do
That's why
it.
we got the best of the best here, though.
You usually do it by some kind of side friction, you know, things that people can hit that they know they're not going to want to hit with their vehicle. You know, medians in the middle of the road, hard objects, you know, on the side of the road. People look at that and they go, well, I don't know if I want to be moving too fast through here. But, you know, it takes a design expert to know just how far you go and not go too far either. You want to go far enough to slow them down, but not so far that it's just very difficult to use.
Well, and one of the things I notice, because I see it every day, because I come in on 55, is when you come over the top of that hill and there's the sign that tells you how fast you're going, how many people really do slow down when they come over the top of that hill and go, oh, yeah, it's only 30 miles an hour here, and they do slow down, which is nice because it's happening as they're coming into downtown. We have a couple of them downtown, but they're right in that main, that couple of blocks downtown. What if we move those further out so people are already slowed down before they get downtown, rather than wait until they're in the 3 or 4 block business district downtown? That maybe if we can get them to slow down before they get to.
I think that's putting a Band-Aid on.
Well,
the
it's
prob-
it's one
we
of those
need
things
to-
that wouldn't be very expensive to do, but they are effective. People do pay attention to them, but
They could be a good
they're
short-term.
they're already in our most hazardous areas of town before they get the warning that they're driving too fast for downtown.
But, yeah, I'd like to talk about our true problem is like the parking, the widths are too small to be even doing parallel parking there. And putting painting a pig white or, whatever, I mean, it's still a pig.
Mm-hmm.
And, we need I don't hate them, I dislike roundabouts, but we gotta get this slowed down. Holland used to have the road coming into Holland, and it was just flat out fast. They dieted it down, now you walk in Holland. We have the manufacturing going, we're really ignoring the tourist. Throughout all of Europe, Florence, Florence is actually known for manufacturing. And then they have the economic balance of tourism. Okay, so I came in under the tourism. Florence is, Italian leather, marble, all those. And I think the DDA can work at developing that business so that somebody visiting your store doesn't need a Band-Aid, or says, hey, geez, Cadillac was nice, but it's so uncomfortable to park there because they don't know how to park on the side streets. Then they go, you know what? It's easier just to go to Traverse City. I had 4 kids. I wouldn't come here right now because if I was just visiting and not knowing the area, it's because of the speed. And that area is not a highway anymore. And we got to get that through our head. And those signs, it's not a highway. And we got people that are almost dying. And then we have these vacant buildings. I mean, and safety on the sidewalk. If we don't start leaning into this, and if manufacturing falters, interest rates are at all-time, not all-time high. They're getting up there into manufacturing, their profit margin's gonna start getting shrunk. Oh, then there's layoffs. So then we can't rely very, as heavily on manufacturing. So if we don't get this tourism up and get another leg on our stool, we're gonna be in trouble. And Steve, you said, hey, should we be more forthcoming and taking leadership, or just kind of let things play out? I think we gotta be aggressive, especially with the way the economy's coming. I mean, I forecast 18 months out. The next 18 months, it's not gonna be that pretty. We will be coming out of it, but we need that extra leg on that stool.
What about, talking about traffic, but reminding people about using the Crosby Road out there to go around? I thought that's kind of the reason they built that road a while back, was to deter some of that traffic too, wasn't it? I mean, I wasn't around here when then, but I use it a lot more often. And I tell you, there's sometimes I'll drive through the city and just be like, oh, what's this? Because I haven't been through town a lot, because I just go through around Crosby. If I'm heading from my house to Meijer, Home Depot, I go that way. And, now we're working too, it's easier to go that way, but I find it's much easier, and you're going to get there quicker than going down through town, and you got the 2 roundabouts and talking along those, like with the speed limit signs there that Lisa was talking about. I think sometimes it's a matter of having them I know it's police enforcement, but they're at the right times, because I see this a lot over there on Platte Road. You know, you have that 25 right out of the roundabout, and then it goes up to, I'm not sure what it goes up, because it just
It's
says,
not posted.
right, just the speed limit ends, you know, the zone ends, and you always see a police officer there when, I would think they would want to be there when there's the other traffic, the sports and stuff are going on, because that's when the people are going through. That's when you want to slow people down, when it's full of kids and everyone. Not, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning when there's no one out there and they're just,
Yeah, it's not the right way to do it. It shouldn't be 25 all the time. It should be something higher, like 35. And then it should have one of those things with when there's going to be games and all that, flashing beacon 25 now.
but I'm saying, like, through the city here, if we have something like that, because sometimes when you see some of the enforcement, it's being done when it's not the busy time.
Late at night.
Yeah.
Drive through at 10 o'clock at night.
You'll see them all over, but, you know, as many times as you'll see people making left turns down here at Shell gas station when there's been a no left turn there for 7 or 8 years, you know, or you see them just blow through stuff. It's like, you'll sit there other times when there's nothing. I think some of that just needs kind of change, and that would deter some people. If you give them a ticket a couple times going through there, I mean, it's hard to go 25 mile an hour. I know. I got my truck, and I have been pulled over once, and they're like, hey, hard to keep that Hemi under 25. I go, it is. I set my cruise control. It's like the only way.
But you get a visitor, okay, that doesn't know this area. You know it, so you'll go, okay, no. A visitor takes it offensive. Bel Air, going through Bel Air, it's a highway, US 31, basically. I've gotten 2 tickets there, coming out of Shanty Shush Mountain. And they're like, because it goes down to 35. And there's a little blinking sign that says your speed limit's this. It's like, you know, that stuff works for the locals. Like, my dad lives up there, so he's like, well, we all know that. Well, I don't, so it's flipping cost me a lot of money. And so it's that extra leg of the stool with the tourism and the visitors that can help drive our economy up here. And that's, you know, that's why I know I sound like a broken record today, but we need to get that tourism up so that it gets more activity in stores, it gets our hotels filled, and it just, we get more and more on the map.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I think, you know, when we're talking traffic counts, I don't think it's as much tourism as it is local people.
Yep.
I think it's local people that are making that trip up and down Mitchell Street, and they're the ones who need to be reminded that it's only 25, because they're trying to get from point A to point B at 8 o'clock in the morning, or at noon, or at 5 o'clock, and if you go 25, get out of the way. Find another way, because it is heavy. And if there was a little more presence during those peak times downtown, I think we could do it. The problem is you have to continue to do it, and when we're talking about what resources we have available, I'm not sure how feasible that is from the other side. That's where if we can come up with other ways to slow it down, that might be a stopgap for now, but we need to have a long-term plan for how we really slow people down. I know that, like in Traverse City, they have the walkways where they have the flashing lights along the bay there, and you're supposed to stop for pedestrian traffic, and it's lit up and the lights flash like crazy, and you never know whether you're really supposed to stop or not, but at least you slow down. You know, I don't know if we could implement something like that downtown, especially in the areas where we have crosswalks but there's no light. Something to draw more attention to the fact that there might be a pedestrian in the walkway and that they have the right of way, because it's clear that people don't look there. They're looking for traffic and to get around the corner and get where they gotta go.
And that is another MDOT road. So,
Mhm.
you know, when
So
people
if they
say
can do
MDOT
it, how
road,
can we do
right.
it? Yeah, how can we
But
make it work?
how much fight has Traverse City put up in order to get there?
Well, how many people have been hit in the roadway because of that? And that's, I mean, hate to say it, but You know, I know we've had at least one person die in the corner over here, right up here, and,
And a motorcycle, the guy on the motorcycle a couple years ago got hit
yep,
bad.
you know,
There's been quite a few.
there's been a lot, and, it's easy to forget about those things until the next time it happens. And how do we need some, I think that should be one of our priorities, is how do, you know, the safety. I think we're back to that how do we make it safer? And the biggest thing is slowing people down and maybe decreasing the amount of traffic that goes down Mitchell Street. Is there another way to get people from the south end of town to the north end of town without having to jump on the expressway? Or
And to jump on, you know, like I totally agree with the tourism part, the bringing people down, blah, blah, blah. But it's almost like all of that can't really happen until we solve the big problem. And the big problem is making it so that they can come down, because, you know, and I agree with you. You know, I mean, my kids are older now, but when they were younger, I wouldn't let them walk down Mitchell Street. There's no way. And as a business owner, I can tell you that other than the month of July, the vast majority of our business is not tourists. It's not out of town. Yes, you get some, but the vast majority of people shopping downtown are locals, and they know how to navigate it, some better than others, you know, but they also don't walk it much. You know, it's all, you know, it's like they're heading to a destination, and they go to this store, and I know when I want to go to this store, I'm going to park around the corner because I don't have to go in near the traffic, and I can sneak around this way. It's like, so they've got it kind of, you know, they've got it figured out, and it's not, but I don't think that it's unfixable either. I mean, if we look back, from those of us that are around here, Traverse City, when I was a kid, downtown was not busy. Downtown was mostly vacant, with the exception of a small little section, you know, that kind of had some older businesses that people went to. Traverse City downtown today is nothing like it was 30 years ago, but they made a decision to make some changes and do something about it, and, you know, and it pays off. And I think we can do the same thing. It's just going to require us to do some heavy lifting off the front and fix some of these things. We got to figure out a way to fix the sidewalks. We got to figure out a way to fix the traffic. We got to figure out a way to make it safe. And then we can start building, you know, a lot of these other components in there, you know, in the buildings. And, you know, I mean, so I just purchased a blighted building that's been blighted for some time. There's a lot of plan. I mean, it's a lot of work to do something with it, but you look at the other buildings that are, you know, kind of semi-blighted right now. Like, I think there's plans in place. It's navigating all the ways to do it. I mean, you know, is a challenge. It takes time, but how do you get? There's a couple buildings that I don't think they know what they want to do with, and so they're just kind of sitting there waiting. Well, how do you convince people to make the improvement and to justify the expense if we don't have a plan? And I think that's kind of what we should be here for, is, you know, I mean, we're supposed to be, you know, kind of infrastructure making it work, you know, and I'm not sure we're giving people a very good reason, if that makes sense.
Well, I think we definitely have to start sometime in the very near future a planning process for the profile of that road. How is it going to be used? Who's it going to be used by? Because we won't have the future that we want for the downtown without it. And nobody's mentioned noise. Noise is a real problem. You're trying to enjoy a meal on the sidewalk with the pollution from the tailpipes, the big trucks. I was doing a tour with mayors from across the state when the mayor had all those folks in here. Marcus and I were doing tours. There were times when we were explaining things that we basically had to stop talking because we were just drowned out by the traffic. And, you know, that all doesn't lead to a nice environment that you can enjoy, you know, especially if you're trying to eat on the sidewalk or something.
Well, and I think that's where we need to be careful with what we do with the traffic downtown is, you know, and you're suggesting shutting it to one lane each direction and putting angle parking in there. But if you're still pushing that many cars through there, angle parking is great because you can get a lot more people in there, but can you back out safely? And those kinds of things to consider too. We don't want it to turn into what it was pre-131, where it's bumper to bumper all the way through town, and you gotta hope that somebody's a nice person will let you back out if there's heavy traffic. So I know we have to do something, but I guess we need to really take into consideration what the right size is,
I think
what the right scope is.
Going to 2-lane or 3-lane, many people will reroute their traffic. I think a lot of the movement is just to use the Boone Road Business District, and it could be, if you go down Mitchell or you go down the freeway, it's probably only a minute or two difference. So the inconvenience level would not be great to reroute traffic on the freeway to Boone Road. And I think we don't want to be that. We want to be a destination district for downtown, which means the people that want to be there and shop there and eat there, that's their mission. It's not, I'm driving down the road, oh, that looks interesting, I think I'll stop and get a bite to eat. You know, that was yesterday. Today is, you know, people know that before they even leave their trip from GR or wherever they're coming from, they already know they want to stop in Cadillac. And then when they get there, that it's manageable when they get there. You know, more wayfinding, you know, get people to the parking lots, just have it be real comfortable for people to move, you know, onto both sides of Mitchell.
Yeah, like Lake City, you know, down through there, they have enough room where you can park and I can open my door and get out. Whether there's traffic coming down at 25 and know that I'm not going to get hit, you know, if we did that 3-lane to where it widen the parking, and I have to worry about it. I mean, that's the biggest thing, you know, like we've been all talking about, getting out. I don't go downtown for some of the stuff because of that. Just, I will park on the side street and walk further.
Yeah, and
Or-
that used to be 4 lanes all the way through town, and they eliminated it, and it's just the 2 lanes now, and and there's room for bike path too. And it's slowed traffic quite a bit going through town, so.
A 3-lane will handle up to 18,000 vehicles per day. We were right around 14. So even if we didn't reroute the traffic, a 3-lane could handle the existing traffic loads. But I would suspect if we did it, that a certain percentage of that would reroute. I would think we would probably drop to somewhere around 12,000 vehicles a day if we were to go to a 3-lane.
I think you'd probably find more local people would access like Lake Street to get around town, or take Crosby Road, or even sometimes Platte Road into town.
You know, that's the problem that came up at the city council meeting not long ago. Farrar Street, the speed on Farrar. You know why that exists? Because it's a competitor for Mitchell on the time it takes to get from, you know, the south side of town to the north side of town. You can actually get there faster if you go down Lake and Farrar Street. And so, you know, we have to have a comprehensive plan to manage our traffic so that we're not having unintended consequences like turning Farrar into a speed zone because people don't want to deal with Mitchell Street.
Steve, I got a question. Owen or Ken, I really like the parallel parking at the lofts now. What width are those? They're wider than. 12 foot?
I believe so.
Okay.
They were able to increase the width by 1 foot. I think they were considering it doing more, but because of the poles that were out there, they weren't able to increase it any more than they did. So they were able to get a slight increase over what exists elsewhere in the downtown.
I really like those spots.
And that's a 1 foot increase.
Foot makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, whether you keep your side mirror or not. Makes a big difference. Then if we're talking about if the solution is to redo Mitchell Street to 3 lanes with other types of parking there, then, like you said, you have to make sure you're not creating another issue in other areas. We have spots in town that there's on-street parking that it's really not wide enough for the traffic to go both directions and to have parking on the side. You know, the other end of Pine Street is an example of that, but also, was it River Street? You go, if you're gonna try to avoid and go out Platte Road, it doesn't really accommodate somebody parking on one side of the road and two-way traffic. Somebody has to stop. So we have to make sure that in this thought, we're also considering the other ways that people get around town and make sure that we're not creating a new problem somewhere else. Because there are many of those places that, I mean, really on the other side of Pine Street, those should be parallel parking and not angle parking, because you can't put a full-size vehicle in there and not be in the street.
You know, at some point next year, we'll be in the process of writing the master plan. A lot of that should actually go right into the master plan. The city, and along with working with our engineering firm, a lot of these ideas probably should find their way into that plan this coming year.
Well, with the sidewalks and the parking like River Street, it's a racetrack. I bought the building over there. I didn't realize it at the time because I was always there at odd times. And somebody goes, be careful, and I'm like, what? Then all of a sudden I notice it's a racetrack in there to get to Walmart and out there. And then Chapin Street, the same thing when we were looking at developing Olson site, and then Chapin, I don't have any parking out front of Chapin Street, but it's a big building. And so if we put parking there and you were to turn from Mitchell Street going south into there, there's gonna be an accident. And so I agree with you, we need to have a good comprehensive plan, not just for a spot area, but a good comprehensive plan.
I like roundabouts. I love roundabouts.
Except for pedestrians.
Yeah,
They're great for vehicles, but they stink for,
people don't know what to
For
do when
people
people try to
walking.
cross the street.
yeah.
Down at each end, roundabouts were the most amazing thing when I lived in Europe for 7 years. And they worked so good. But people also stopped in crosswalks. I think our crosswalks are almost misleading, and if we don't do something with them, we should not have them.
Just do away with
Because I watch people walk out front and they see it and they're like, oh, no, nobody stopped. We can't go, we can go. Either,
Yeah, especially the mid-block ones. Yeah,
either
that's-
highlight, yeah, the ones without the
Without a
lights,
light, yeah.
Either highlight them or paint them over, and it's a street and you have to go to the corner.
Well,
I play Frogger because I'm confident in it, but
Well, and in those blocks, if people want to cross the street, they cross wherever they are. They don't go to the crosswalk to cross anyway. So.
and I think Chris has mentioned it a couple times. There are, if you work downtown long enough, there are a couple spots where it's much safer to cross, and it's not where the crosswalks are. But you know where they are because you know when where those natural traffic
Yeah.
breaks come, and you just hightail it across because you know I'm crossing here, and like I know one is like almost like through the intersection of Mason here. You know, it's like you kind of cut across at an angle, and you end up over like by Blue in the Face there. But that's a good spot because there's always like a bigger gap that
Yeah.
you can get across
The
than
traffic
if
lights
you go
work
down
well
to
there,
the
yeah.
then if you go down to the crosswalk, that's a
That's-
half a block down.
But people visiting are like, I either have to go to this corner or after this corner. Oh, look, here I can cross here. And it's almost,
They don't know that.
It's almost like we're leading them to their death.
And honestly, like
Please cross here.
when you get that person with mobility issues
Or families.
or
and they're trying to get
whatever,
multiples across.
yeah, and they ask where can I get a Cadillac T-shirt? Well, I'll go across the store, but drive there. And we tell people, I mean, it's stupid. See it's across the street, but make sure you drive because you don't want to try to cross. And it shouldn't be that way, but I mean, I think we kind of, there's a pretty good consensus on what we need to do. Now it's just how to do it. So maybe let's skip from A to C, and if we look at because I think a lot of this really needs to go to subcommittees because it's going to be a lot of in-depth discussion. But it's like looking at the three committees. I guess my idea, see what everybody thinks, is it's like almost take parking lot committee and add safety,
Yeah.
and let them tackle kind of that infrastructure, and then the streetscape committee add aesthetic, and that kind of tackles the beautification part. And I think almost everything that we've talked about fits into one of those two groups, and then we can start tackling it.
And I think after like the safety is addressed, then just kind of why come to Cadillac? What brings people to Cadillac? Why do you want to come here over other towns? Like I just hear a lot of, well, they do this, and this town's doing this, and Manistee does this, and all these things. So what is the reason to come here? But I think focusing on the safety first, we're bringing all the people here, and then like, oh, trip on the sidewalk and play Frogger in the road. Focus on that first, and then maybe like the streetscape could go into something that, okay, now why do we want to bring them here? These are the things that are safe. How can we manage that to try to get people here?
Well, and I mean, I can't speak for other people, but my personal feeling is, and we have a Visitors Bureau rep here that I'm sure can chime in.
Yeah.
For many years, the Cadillac Chamber never focused on retail really, or downtown. They kind of, it was much more geared towards Main. I think they realized that, especially with the dissolution of the DCA, there's that realization now that they need to pick up that slack. So I think between the chamber and the Visitors Bureau, I think there's a lot of support to help make that piece happen. We just have to give them something to work with, because it's really hard to give people that reason to come when it's like, yeah, come here because we're so great, and then they get here and it's like, this is it,
Yep.
So.
Well, for the streetscape, we have both representation for both of those, so I think it can all tie in really nicely.
It's almost like, we gotta build step A,
Yeah.
and then step B I think will come, and I think there are some groups that are very excited to do it. We just have to do our part to help give them the reason why. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, so if I can just jump in. So, I mean, that's why we're focusing a lot on destination development, and a lot of visitors bureaus are starting to do that more, so that's why, I mean, we can, spend all of our money on marketing, but it's like, yeah, when they get here, then what? So that's why we're, we contributed funds to the White Pine Trail in the Commons and the WEX and, Cadillac Pathway, and, so like taking those funds and, the banners, reinvesting in some of those types of things to make it the destination. I mean, we talked about tourism and bringing more. I hate to say this, we're literally actually at capacity. Last year was our fiscal year starts May 1 and ends April 30th. Last fiscal year was the highest occupancy and revenue on record, ever. This summer actually beat last summer. So we're actually getting to the point more of like capacity, where we're getting like the hotel study and things like that. So we actually get to the point where like business travels resume. Some of the properties actually have busier business travel. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of factors. So that's what I'm saying. So like, I look at in the summertime, we don't need to come to Cadillac in the summertime because they're already here. So we can take X amount of dollars instead of putting, ads or marketing stuff out, putting it into, like I said, the downtown.
Trying to draw them into town.
And like,
yeah.
The safety, and I absolutely agree, like the aggressiveness with being, safety. I've also almost got hit walking in a crosswalk. We were at a conference in Alma a couple weeks ago, and we can maybe talk about that. But it's a college town, so we're walking, and they didn't have a lot of stoplights, and like I'm stopping because I'm like, the cars are actually stopping, and I'm like, oh my God. And Lindsay says, we're in a college town, and I'm like, oh my God. So it was like actually weird to me that people were stopping. I was like afraid to cross. Mike is like, I'm not, crossing the street. So you think other places depending where they're coming from. I mean, if they're coming from, a walkable community where they live, whether it's Elma or Mount Pleasant or maybe around Grand Valley or wherever, they're coming here with that expectation that, oh, I can walk across this crosswalk because people will stop. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that you're saying are exactly what we want to be engaged with and we want to be involved with. The aesthetics and the marketing and program support and the walkability and the destination development. We want to continue to work with the city and the chamber and economic development, because these things all come together in different ways. So if we don't have an attractive downtown, then somebody coming to potentially work in the hospital is gonna be like, I don't wanna live here, their spouse doesn't wanna live here. You know, developers coming to town, you wanna see that vibrancy, you wanna see things going on, you wanna see all of these things. So it's coming from different angles, but I think we're all moving in that same direction, so, yeah, but like I said, the Visitors Bureau is, I don't wanna say all in, but, you know, I can't pay for everything, but I mean, we definitely were very, very supportive and willing to be engaged, in whatever way we can with these initiatives.
So let's finish up committee list real quick. So looking at that is for those of you that are here, are you comfortable with the committees that you're on? Do you wish to, if anyone wishes to make a change and we need to get you,
I need to be on one.
you need to be on one because you're on nothing. So
How about I go on the administrative committee?
I mean, we can't. I'm not opposed to putting you on there. The administrative committee doesn't meet a whole lot, so maybe add you to that. And
On Streetscape, I think,
Okay.
with the concerns you've expressed, I think that might be.
like I say, probably more. I mean, do you think I'm wrong, John, when I
No, I
make
think
that assessment?
It would be very useful in the Streetscape.
That works for me.
That's probably the most diverse committee.
Community, or like the business, or the buildings, all of that, and what is allowed, what's not allowed, and
It's probably one of the most active committees too.
I don't know when
Well,
we
that
have an
sounds good.
administrative committee meeting.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't happen often. It's kind of
Well, it's when we change bylaws or, you know.
yeah. I mean,
and then they all.
Yeah, I think we've
come
only
back,
met a
and
couple
then
of
we
times
get
since
our
I've been on the
results.
board, so.
That works perfect.
everybody else good with their assignments? Tim, you good?
I like it.
I don't even know what it is. How's that?
You're on the Streetscape committee
I knew that wasn't.
and the administrative committee.
Seems like I was on one of those at one time, but seems like we have a lot of people on there, so.
Well, we have a lot of people that aren't on the board on there for their ability to contribute to what we're doing, because it impacts so much of the community.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to the parking lot / safety committee?
Sure.
Because I think that one, you know, if that one's going to kind of tackle the traffic road issue, that's going to get.
Well, I think Streetscape probably should handle the function of the road.
You think?
Yeah, parking, I think it was just intended to be the management of all the parking lots and their condition and striping and upkeep and cleanliness and all of that.
Well, my thought was just if we added, you know, like the road safety component to parking and then kept streetscape more aesthetic. Otherwise, we're just dumping a lot into streetscape. If we had, because at that point, then pretty much everything is on streetscape
Because
committee.
parking's kind of,
Not
gone, but.
Parking
Yeah.
committee is, what are we going to
Yeah, I
reseal
just
this
don't
year?
see the relationship between the parking lots and the function of the road, I guess. They're all off the road.
Or
I think-
or do we want to make a separate committee just to tackle the street safety part?
Maybe the parking lot committee is also street safety.
Well, that was my
Well-
thought.
well,
But
I
like
guess-
you just rename yourself,
Yeah,
but
just
you all
rename
go
it.
into this other
I guess,
one.
yeah, and I can kind of
Like-
see where you're seeing them as two different, where you're looking at the streetscape, or you're looking at the sidewalks, what it looks like when you're walking down the sidewalks, more of that kind of thing, making it, the beautification piece, the welcoming, what
Right.
welcomes people to downtown, what,
Do we need to recruit businesses? Are some
guess
businesses
that's-
ugly that need paint?
and I guess I was looking at the parking lot committee as more of a infrastructure kind of group,
Mhm,
where it
not
talks
just
about the
parking.
actual road itself and because really once you set the schedule for parking lot resealing and those kinds of things that we've done in the parking assessment, there's,
I'm almost thinking, we almost rename them parking and safety committee, and then the streetscape and beautification committee. One dealing more with the
and as a group, I think we can deal with the actual Mitchell Street.
And there's a lot of
I mean,
crossover.
Because everything's gonna,
just 'cause you're on it,
Everything's gonna
it
be
doesn't
intertwined,
come
yeah.
other
Where we
ones.
come back and reconvene.
We could refer it to the administrative committee.
So what do we decide?
Yeah, what it,
John, you look like you have a thought.
Are these
Well, I just
required
think, I
committees?
just think we're gonna have to then grow the parking committee, because I'm sure there's some people on streetscape that would be valuable on the function of the road. And so, I guess it doesn't matter, it's just that then we might have to rethink what the membership is on the parking committee. We might have to bump that up a couple members. So, I mean, either way it works, it's just that we might have to relook at the personnel on there. I mean, the people that have the passion and the knowledge of what the things we're gonna be dealing with should be on that committee.
Or I mean, the other option is, we can leave it. There's going to be a ton of stuff filtering into that streetscape committee, and then we just throw out the topics that we're dealing with at this time, and then who's ever interested can come be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that would
Well,
work.
and we already have, there's 3 people on both the streetscape and the parking lot committee. So if they're gonna be on both of those committees, they should be able to communicate with,
And then we basically just leave parking lot committee, much like administrative committee, is just handling those mundane
we don't have.
couple things a year that,
So you don't need me in the parking lot, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean,
So- yeah.
streetscape's gonna be the most dynamic and the most challenging, because that's where the majority of the issues that have to be worked on constantly. And then Rob brought up, and we talk about not having money, one of the things we can do without a lot of money, Rob mentioned, building design guidelines. That's something we could work on without spending, much money. And that could go, what committee would that go through?
Well, we
Would that be administrative, or would that be streetscape,
we talked about, before Bob left, we talked about a little bit too, is just putting out some guidelines about what people can do. Can I put big planters out on the sidewalk? Can I put a bike rack on the corner? What can I do? Can I spray weed killer in the cracks of the sidewalk?
I'm talking about the
As a
actual
business
building
owner too.
materials.
No, I understand that too. I'm just saying that
Everything compre-
a lot of those low cost things
Right.
that,
Oh, yeah,
that we can do to support, and I mean, it's not going to solve it all, but at least it's going to help.
As a building
inch us
owner,
there
what
a
can you
little
do
bit.
to help make downtown more welcoming or
Right.
safer or welcoming or?
I mean, I know I've had a couple people come and, do you know where the sign ordinance is? What can we put for a sign? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, I don't know either, but call Mike. So,
Which committee would you want to handle something like that? Should that be administrative, or should it be streetscape?
the what can you do?
To what can you do in the building material design guidelines?
I mean, that we probably could throw to administrative, just, especially, if you look at the makeup of the streetscape too, that way we're not, I just don't want to bog them down with so much that
Okay.
it's already going to be packed.
Is that something that you want to put on the work agenda? That
I
we start,
think we should, yeah.
Ultimately, I could put up a base product, and we might want to bring in an architect for limited funds to review what I put together, or at some point, if I need an architect to give me some advice, I'm guessing it wouldn't take, any great amount of time to get that input from architects. But
Well, and in reality, we're going to want to get something out fairly quickly for anyone that wants to do something spring, summer next year.
right,
Because, right now, builders are booking up for spring right now for outdoor stuff. So,
yeah, the what can you do, I think we can put together real quick. The more challenging part is how restrictive do we want to be in terms of the aesthetics of the building materials and the cost. That'll be the only tricky thing.
Could we take, examples like from, let's say, Holland, Michigan, because they have,
Yeah, I mean,
not
that's
totally rip everything off, but use it as a template.
that's what I thought, just trying to find one that's 80% of what we want, and then tweaking it the other 20%, to fit what our thoughts are. But yeah, it shouldn't take a great deal of time. First meeting, we could just I could bring in 2 or 3 samples, and people could weigh in on which one they like, what they have a good feeling about, and then maybe that would give me a direction of what to model after. Fortunately, these things are done commonly, and we have a lot of samples out there. All right, so that'll go to administrative, that piece. They'll be excited they can meet on something.
Isn't it basic?
So the last thing I think is informational meetings, requirements of the state.
Partly why.
Yeah, we will be having to set up in the near future at least. I think twice a year we need to have a informational meeting to the broader public where we talk about our goals and, which is kind of timely because we're doing it here. But yeah, probably before the end of the year we'll be having to hold an informational meeting and invite the public in, and that'll have to be a line item on the agenda, and we'll have to, myself and others on the board would have to make a presentation. I'll probably put most of it together, saying, what our mission is, what we've been doing, what we want to do, where the money's been being spent and so forth, and just give a summary report. It's kind of like doing a presentation of an annual report, actually, and just to let them know what we're up to, what we want to be doing, that kind of thing. So the last time we did it, I think there was only 1 or 2 members from the public, so it's we didn't garner a lot of public interest in doing that, but it is a statutory requirement. We do need to be doing it. So.
And maybe I want to regret suggesting this. Maybe it's a bad idea, but do we want to try to work that into, inviting, especially the business owners downtown, say, hey, come, we're going to give you a chance to speak your mind and tell us what's important to you, and give them a little feedback, B, a little buy-in, so when they start seeing these changes and we're starting to go out and saying, hey, we want to change this, there's a reason why. And it's not just out of the blue, because I truly don't think a lot of people realize, A, that there even is such a thing as a DDA, B, what we do and what our purpose is, and C, how it affects them.
I completely agree. Even though it can get a little, you get so many opinions, I think that it's important to get as many to come as possible.
But we could give each person, 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes to stand up and
at least
share your thoughts.
At least for one of them, to get them in there, and so they know that, hey, there is people meeting to talk about this stuff and to try to do it. And
we're not just being ignored. The city cares.
Yeah.
Because
it gets really annoying hearing, like, the city does nothing. Nobody does anything. What does the city even do? I'm like, seriously?
We could do our presentation first so they can hear what we've done, what we want to do, and then if they don't hear something that's on their mind, they can say, well, what about this? I didn't hear anybody talk about this.
Yeah.
Or express their support. I really support this aspect of it, or, whatever.
Right.
We probably wouldn't be able to do that meeting at 9:30 in the morning, though.
No, probably not.
No,
We have to
probably.
do it earlier or an evening,
Either,
because
after
most of those
after
people, they're the
hours.
only ones working there, and it can't be during their regular hours, so.
Yeah, and I'll check on it. I don't think there's any limitation whether this is at a regular meeting or a special meeting. We could even see about setting a special meeting or something.
Outside of the.
But I'll check into that.
When I think didn't we, with our change to the bylaws, didn't we basically put in there a little clause that we can set a meeting whenever we want? So.
Yeah, I mean, we have posting requirements and so forth, but we'd probably want to do a little better outreach when we do this public meeting. So.
No, I agree. But I'm just saying, if we plan it accordingly and
Yeah.
post it, then it should be able to count as our.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
Okay, I like it.
Communications, other items.
I do not have any other communications.
Ken, you got anything?
Nope.
Just along for the ride.
That's right. Waiting for snow.
Who said that?
We got, then we
All
got
the weeds disappeared.
another public comment period, and
Public comment?
I'm trying to, okay. Do you want to talk about the CEC, or do you want me to bring it up?
why don't you go ahead and brief them on what we did?
Be official. Okay, so we as in John and Mike, myself, Lindsay, and Marcy from the Visitors Bureau went to Alma a couple weeks ago for the MSU Extension Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference. It was great. I think it was literally a 24-hour conference, but we learned a whole lot in a short amount of time. They would like us to strongly consider hosting it next year. And recognizing that every city has a different level of engagement, like they don't have a visitors bureau, and their chamber and their economic development's kind of removed. It's a totally different than what we have here. But it would be hosting them in September. There was about 100 people, and having a general session, and then breaking off in these breakout sessions. There was like 5 or 6 each time, and they go into different businesses. So like, for example, okay, the conversation about whatever is at Simply Delightful and at Horizon Books and Charming North and wherever, and City to Shore, and then then switch, and then whatever. Anyways, so there's a lot of like engagement and a lot of people being downtown and the walkability and those kinds of things. So anyways, that's something we are going to meet and talk about internally, myself and John, Mike, Lindsay, Lisa from MSU Extension / AES for Economic Development. She actually had a conflict, so she wasn't able to attend. But we did attend the session where, it's kind of like, so you want to host. What does that mean? What's our responsibility? So just kind of heads up on that. It's going to take a significant amount of work, but I think it could be really cool. You just, things that you see and learn about Alma. Like, I've been to Alma a lot. I've never really been downtown. And some of the things in connecting with some of the people, connecting with developers, I thought it was a really cool opportunity. So we'll be looking at that soon. Next week, we need to start meeting and talking if we want to do that. They're strongly encouraging us. Like, okay, then you need to help us, so... And then another thing, we're also talking aligned also with MSU Extension and MEDC. They have a program called FIT, which is First Impressions Tourism, where they send a small group of people into your community, don't tell you when, and then just do this whole assessment of all the things, and then give you a report on that. So we have to decide, again, internally as a small group, if we want to apply for that. The deadline for that is November 1st, and they would do it sometime next year. But it might align well with the same people doing the FIT or the same people doing the CEC. So I think it could be a really cool way for all of us to continue to work together as the small group, but then also the broader group to, again, keep strengthening Visitors Bureau, Chamber, City, DDA, Economic Development. Because, again, all the things that you're talking about are exactly the types of things that, like we've been talking, like I was going to buy trash cans. It's like, because we talked about trash cans, and in Alma, the guy talked about, he had somebody, a local manufacturer donate the trash cans, and they looked really nice. And it's like, okay, well, hey, let's go call Eric and see how he did that. Which, again, is totally out of the realm of like tourism, but at the same time, it's all about community and aesthetics and visibility. Same thing. We don't want to bring people to Cadillac and have them be like, oh my God. Yeah. We want to, now that we've had a lot of success with people coming for outdoor recreation and other activities, taking some of those funds and reinvesting in different ways. are we always forever going to be able to do that? I don't know, but that's the direction that we're going in pretty heavily. So, and fortunately we have a PR consultant doing a whirlwind blitz with us today, so I need to run. But thank you for letting me be here, and like I said, I'm happy to engage anytime with everybody. So, thank you.
Yeah, the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities was a nice twist. They like to focus on the local business people, and that's why a lot of the sessions are in the businesses that people have just recently bought or upgraded or have had success with. And certainly we have our own story of business people who are doing well. that we can reinforce, and they can tell their story about how they were able to achieve things in the city. And then that gives encouragement to, teaches people what caused people to move there, what are some of the problems with trying to navigate starting a business or growing a business in the town. And so it's a different perspective instead of just the textbook kind of things. What do you do to make a downtown successful? It's more rooted right in people's experience and actual development experience. So that was kind of enjoyable to hear. And then other communities just talking about how they were able to make a difference in their community. So yeah, I think it'd be very nice to be able to host it. Hopefully we get the nod sometime soon. After we meet next week, we'll probably have a game plan as to how soon we can pin down whether we get that conference here or not. So, but it could lay the foundation for doing other conferences. I'm on the board of the Michigan Downtown Association. They run the same kind of numbers for their conference and workshops, and so we can maybe use the game plan for CEC to attract the Michigan Downtown Association into Cadillac as well. So all good stuff.
Anyone have anything else? Anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
You bet.
Motion and support, all in favor? Opposed?
You go, Tim.
See y'all next time.